everyone, welcome back to Miniature Painting 101, a series of videos where I teach you all about painting miniatures from start to finish and everything in between. And this is part 82, hair. How to paint hair. Now this is specifically on red and orange hair, but a relatively realistic, I'd say, tone. We'll start off with orange. So this is kind of like the Nordic orange hair that you love for Space Wolves. So of course I'll be painting with Space Wolves today. And it's time to paint some orange hair on the Space Wolves. And today we'll be using a few colors to this. We're going to use Troll Slayer Orange, which is very bright orange, like a pylon orange. But we're going to use XV88, Reikland Flesh Shade, and Ushabti Bone to tone down the orange and to bring it to a more realistic tone. So we'll start off with a 3-to-1 mix of Troll Slayer Orange and XV88. And of course I thinned it down slightly with some medium, that way it goes on nice and doesn't obscure any detail. And what the XV88 does, as you can see, is it tones down the orange. It's no longer this pylon, bright, very unrealistic orange. It's more of an orangey brown, which is much more of a realistic color, and as well it's more suiting for the Space Wolves. So as you can see here, I'm just applying it to all the hair and his beard, and I'm just going to get it nice and a nice coat all over the hair and the beard. But of course I don't want to obscure any details, so it will dry, and because it's thinned down, it won't obscure any details, and that's great. And as with the rules before, the two keys are texture and tone, so we're going to make sure that it has a nice, more realistic tone. It's not pylon orange anymore, and then we're going to bring out the texture of the hair, of course, with some Reikland Flesh Shade. Now the reason why I went with Reikland Flesh Shade in this case is because it is a mixture of reds and browns. So it's a great color for going over an orange hair, giving it that slightly dirtier appearance, which is what you want to go for anyway with a Space Wolf. And I intentionally avoided an orange shade because that would just make it more orangey, and you could go with an Agrax Earth shade as well. It would just make it more dirtier appearance, but I prefer Reikland Flesh Shade, as I say, it has that red tones to it, which will work really well with the orange of the beard and the hair. And then I just do a quick overbrush. We're using the same combination of paint as before. I used a wet palette, of course, so it keeps the paint nice and wet. And that way you can use it after the shade is completely dry. And it's a more realistic transition from the recesses to the raised areas. And you see now, just bring out the texture of the beard. And then all I did was I added some Ushabti Bone now into that previous mix to make it about a 3-to-1 mix, which will lighten it up considerably without making it chalky. And I'm going to use this to finish off the miniature and apply more highlights to the beard and the hair. And that's essentially orange in a nutshell. It's not too hard of a color to paint on hair, but the key is just to keep more realistic tones and bring out the texture of the hair. And that's it. And here's what the model looks like when it was completely done. As you can see now, you can see the texture of the beard and the hair quite nicely, and it's a pretty nice shade of orange. So now let's do the same thing with red hair. Now what we're going to take the reds from the Citadel range, and we're going to once again tone them down using browns and bring them to a more realistic hair tone. So today we'll be using Mephiston Red, XV88, Reikland Flesh Shade once again, because of the same red part, the red and brown, and then finally Evil Sunz Scarlet as well, in a combination of paints. So we'll start off with a 3-to-1 mix of Mephiston Red and XV88. Once again, the XV88 is going to go and tone down the red of the hair, and it's going to make it look really awesome. It's just, once again, brings it to a more realistic color, and it's not as bright, in-your-face red as it once was. And of course, I thinned it down slightly, and then applied it to all the hair and the sideburns of the model. And when that was dry, I applied a Reikland Flesh Shade. Once again, I like the Reikland Flesh Shade because it's a combination of browns, which are natural, and reds, which go along really well with the red hair. So this is a great shade to apply, and I'm just applying it straight from the bottle once again onto the miniature and giving it plenty of time to dry. And if you ever want more depth of colors, more darkness in the recesses, feel free to do a second shade. Just make sure the first one's completely dry before proceeding to the second one. And when that was completely dry, as you can see now, it did tone it down considerably, so we're going to bring it back up once again with the same combinations we did before. Wet palettes, gotta love them. By pre-mixing this and on the wet palette, as I said, I keep the same colors and I don't need to remix it, and it's just great to continue this, especially if you're batch painting a lot of these guys. And I'm bringing out the texture with a quick overbrush of these areas and focusing on the raised areas. Once again, so there's a really nice transition from the recesses to the raised areas. And when that was completely done, then I did the same thing with Evil Sunz Scarlet instead of Mephiston Red, 3-to-1 mix with XV88 to tone it down a little bit, and then applied it. Now, the way it's a little more bright, and I focused on, once again, the raised areas are facing more upwards, more like a zenithal appearance. But as you can see, I'm focusing there, as I said, the one's facing more vertically. And this will, once again, emphasize those raised parts, give it some nice texture to the hair, and it's a more realistic skin hair tone. You can always do the really, really bright, in-your-face red as well, which could work. I just like these more toned-down versions of these colors. And that's it. So here's what the model looks like in the end. As you can see, once again, it has plenty of texture and a pretty nice realistic tone of red hair. And here's the two models side by side, orange and red. So that's it. That's how to paint orange and red hair on Space Wolves, or any model in particular. So thank you as always for watching this episode of Miniature Painting 101. I really hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for next week's episode, part 83, just around the corner. But if you don't want to wait for next week, check out The Warp. Click on the link below for a free 14-day trial to my premium YouTube channel, where not only will you get to see the next 6 months worth of Miniature Painting 101 episodes before anyone else, you'll get to see over 60 start-to-finish painting tutorials, battle reports, an Airbrush 101 series, face-off episodes, just some awesome wargaming content. Over 300 episodes have been uploaded so far. So stay tuned for more episodes. Go check out The Warp. I think you'll love it. And until next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting, everyone.